Hello friends, this is Scott, and this is a video as a conclusion of an experiment that I started last growing season. Here I am over at a friend's house, and these were mature bulb onions that were just left in the ground and were not harvested from the previous year. And look at how healthy these plants are. So I'm thinking, you know what, I'm going to plant these in my garden at home. I brought home probably 150 individual plants, and I'm thinking, you know what, I'm going to get some monster bulbs out of these, thinking that that was going to be the case. Now that's the question. Do overwintered bulbs that break up and basically consume themselves and produce new plants, do they grow bulbs the next season, or what do they do? Now, I am really thinking that these are going to turn into monster bulbs. Look at how ahead of the game they are. They're just huge already, and this should be a great season. So I just planted them in an area. It was separate from my other onions that I bought from the store, onion sets and onion plants, and I just wanted to make sure that I knew which plants were which, so that I could really conduct my informal experiment. Again, this isn't scientific, but this is just kind of real life. What did I find out? So I planted quite a few. Like I say, I think there was 150, 160 of these individual plants, and they went really quickly, and I'm thinking I'm going to have tons of onions. So I was excited to see how this was going to go. But as the season progressed very quickly, in about 2 months, I realized that they didn't grow any bulbs. All these went right to seed heads. So this is what a seed is. This is an onion seed. So this is what they look like when you plant seeds. And if you want bulbs, I'm going to show you now what you got to do to actually get bulbs, not just get seed heads. Early in the growing season, you plant the seeds in a seed starting mix with probably a heat mat, and make sure they stay moist until they sprout. You can dense plant them because you'll be separating them out anyway individually, and they're not going to hurt each other while they're still small and stunt their growth, because you'll be separating them and planting them before that happens. Okay, so these are what they look like if you grow them yourself. And then if you go to the store and you're looking at the store and you see some other types of plants, so this is how they come. What they do is they grow them like that. They grow them a little bit bigger, and then they dry them off a little bit, bundle them up into usually 50 to 100 per rubber band. And those are red onions, and I've got some Walla Wallas, and I've got some yellows, and I've got some whites there, I believe. And I bought a bunch of onions this year. But you can grow and get bulbs from these onions. Now, some will produce seed, but most of them will produce bulbs in this form. Again, these were grown this year from seed, not from any bulbs separating. Now, the other way to grow bulbs is these are ones that I had from left over from last year that I picked that never did mature, and I just dried them out, put them in a cool place in my pantry, and they're sprouting. So I think that these will be they're a little bit bigger than the ones that I got from the store. So I'm hoping that these are going to turn into big bulbs, but that will continue the experiment to see if the ones that I dried off and stored for a year from my harvest from last year, whether those will turn into bulbs or whether those will turn into seed. I need to figure that out still. So those are the ones that I grew that had left over, and then here's the ones that I bought from the nursery. And those will grow into bulbs. Now, generally, I think plants will do a better job of growing bulbs. These will grow bulbs, but they may not be the biggest. If you want to grow the biggest bulbs, I think you grow from your own seed, and then you get plants and plant the plants, or you buy the plants. I think that's the better, more surefire way to make sure that you get big bulbs. Now, here's just store-bought large onions, and I just want to show you these for a demonstration, just to kind of get back to my initial point that overwintered onions that consume itself, like these onions here, when they get rotten and they start to sprout with green onion tops, which we'll see right here, they consume the bulb. And what happens is this one isn't fully enough developed to have a root structure on these individual plants, but I believe what's going to happen is if I was to let these go, even though it's been stored and dried a little while, if I were to let these go and totally separate and create their own root structure, they'd be just like the other ones last year. They would just immediately they'd go to seed rather than produce a bulb. Here I'm cutting into one just to kind of take a look and see if the roots are even starting to develop on these, and it's just too early. But I wanted to cut this one apart just for observation purposes and just to show you. Now, nothing wrong with green onions. I mean, green onions are awesome. Now, you see how I sliced the bottom of this off? I'm going to show you more about that here in a minute. But if you just want green onions, go ahead and plant those plants. You can eat the tops, or you could just grow out the seed and then collect the seed. And then the next year you could plant that seed, and then you'll get bulbs the next year. But to answer the question is, if you overwinter onions, bulb onions, and you let them, stay in the ground all winter and they sprout again, they're just going to probably turn into seed rather than bulbs. But again, green onions, there's nothing wrong with them. it's nice to have a supply of green onions in the garden also all season long. Now here's a little trick if you want to just grow green onions. Now you see I cut the bottom off this onion, and I would usually get a little bit bigger of a slice, but you can put that right into dirt or even in water. And what'll happen is it'll just shoot up new green growth. So you can get green onions out of this. You'll get numerous sprouts coming up. And just like when the plant was separating from the original bulb, you'll shoot up different individual green plants from that. And you can just eat the green onions. They will never bulb up, but they probably would go to seed. So the process, again, as you look at, I've kind of lined everything up in order. Everything comes back to the seed. The seed's the important thing to have when you're growing for bulb. You want to have new growth from seed into plants, plant the plants. You can get them from bulb, and they will produce some bulbs, but they're generally not the biggest bulbs. So either grow your own seed and separate them and plant them, or either buy the plants or buy these sets. But don't expect to overwinter an onion, or if you have an onion sprouting on the counter, it's not going to do what you want it to do this year, unless you just want green onions, and then eat those green onions, but don't expect to have a bulb on that. So anyway, well, thanks for watching this video, and hope that helped. That's my informal experiment, and I appreciate you watching, and we need to get outside and plant these, the next generation of onions, but the snow's still coming down, so we'll have to find another break in the storms to get out there and plant. Thanks for watching.